Two mistakes Apple made that completely changed the world. So, Apple, as you know, was one of the biggest multinational tech companies in the world. It was founded by Steve Jobs, Ronald Wayne, and Steve Wozniak. The company sells various products including personal computers, laptops, smartphones, tablets, smartwatches, and so forth. In today's video, we're going to be taking a look at two mistakes Apple made that completely changed the world. So, the first mistake Apple made was basically firing Steve Jobs. Now, you might be wondering, how could Steve Jobs get fired from a company he started? Well, it basically goes like this. As Apple grew, Steve Jobs hired someone who he thought was very talented to run the company with him. But unfortunately, their views of the future began to diverge, and eventually they had a falling out. The board of directors sided with him, and Steve Jobs was kicked from his own company. Steve Jobs was devastated, but he wanted to prove to Apple that they made a grave mistake. So he made a company called Next, which Apple bought from him, and subsequently hired him back. But in the meantime, while creating Next, Steve Jobs made a company called Pixar, which is now known as one of the biggest animation companies to have ever existed. Steve Jobs himself says that Apple firing him was the best thing that could have happened in his life.
I didn't see it then, but it turned out that getting fired from Apple was the best thing that could have ever happened to me.
And in a turn of events, if Steve Jobs hadn't been fired from Apple, then Pixar would have never existed. By the way, if you're enjoying the video, then a sub to the channel would be really helpful. And without further ado, let's move on to the second mistake Apple made that completely changed the world. The second mistake Apple made, which completely changed the world, was actually bringing out the first iPhone. But how could the first iPhone be a mistake? It was a legend at that time. A lot of people described it as game-changing. So let me tell you why it so happened to be a mistake. So back in 2007, leading brands such as Nokia and BlackBerry wanted to launch products that people wanted, and the trend at that time were phones with keypads. And brands like Nokia and BlackBerry who had phones with keypads just kept improving the keypads and the screens because that's what people wanted and that's what people expected. Now Apple, on the other hand, had a different way of selling its products. Apple didn't want to launch products that people wanted. They wanted to launch products that people didn't know they wanted. So when Apple launched its first phone, people were shocked. They never expected a phone to just go from a small screen and a keypad to just a touchscreen and a home button. Now, you might say that the sudden launch of the first iPhone wasn't really a thing to worry about. Most of you might even say that you would be the first one to buy the product. But people at that time, as I said, were used to phones that had a keypad, and this sudden leap caused confusion in most people. It was just not normal to just go from typing on a keypad to typing on a touchscreen. But this was Apple's plan. What they wanted was for people to evolve. They wanted touchscreen phones to be the new trend, and they wanted to be the first company to do it. People were shocked at first, but eventually over time they got used to it, and touchscreen phones became the new trend, especially because of other companies like Samsung following Apple's footsteps. And that is two mistakes Apple made that completely changed the world. I'm Margin, and I'll see you in the next one.